Hello, we're back. In episode 40, I said we'd be talking about the Invader port to the PC, or really any web-connected device with a keyboard, using blocks in the Scratch web-based game development IDE. So Scratch is a web-based game development IDE that was developed by MIT and is targeted towards kids and teaching them the basics of programming in a fun and intuitive way. But I have to say that after creating my Invader demo with it, I found it to be quite powerful and really fun to use myself. Here's what the interface looks like when starting a new project, and if I click on the My Stuff here, I'm presented with the projects that I've worked on. These are saved in the cloud. These can also be downloaded to your PC for safekeeping. Invaders A and Invaders B were created from some tutorials that I followed online to learn how to use Scratch. There are lots of great tutorials for Scratch online. I'll leave some links for a few that I used while learning it. Let's take a look at the full Invader games that I created while following those tutorials before I show you my Invader program. So by just clicking to see inside, we are taken inside the program so we can edit and run it. Each sprite or character in your game has its own program attached to it, and then there are the backdrops, also known as the stage. So let's run it and see how it looks by clicking on the green flag representing Go. We can also play it full screen. Let's stop it now by, you guessed it, clicking on the red stop sign. And we'll take a look at the player code. You can see that A, D, and space are used to move left, right, and fire, respectively. It's so easy to use this system, but it teaches you programming logic in such a cool way, and I think it's a great way to prototype games or parts of a more complicated game. Let's take a look at the other one. We'll just go back to My Stuff and click See Inside for Invader B. This one is very similar, but is another programmer's take on how to accomplish creating the same game. Okay, now that you've seen the two tutorials that I used to learn Scratch, here's my Invader demo created in Scratch from scratch. So there it is. As you can also see here, you can create extensive comments. One thing I haven't figured out is how to read a joystick in Scratch. You can add more functionality by adding more advanced extensions by clicking here, so I'll have to see if that might be a solution. Update. I found this website where someone created an extension for gamepad input, so I gave it a try and it literally took me 5 minutes to get it to work. I just saved a copy of my program from the official Scratch web IDE, then opened this page and imported my file. Then I ran it to make sure it would work first. Then I just went to these new extensions here and added this to the turret and these two things to the turret shot, and voila, it worked. And the cool thing is that you can now use the keyboard or joypad to play the game. I wanted to show you a couple of pictures. I recently attended CORGSCON the Columbus, Ohio Retro Gaming Society show, and also made a trip to the Raspberry Pi store in Cambridge, England, as part of my wife and I's vacation. Here are the pictures from CORGSCON, me with Howard Scott Warshaw, the designer and programmer for Yar's Revenge, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and of course E.T. for the Atari 2600, just to name a few. He's also a great guy, and I had the pleasure of working with him at 3DO. If you haven't read his book, Once Upon Atari, How I Made History by Killing an Industry, you definitely need to. I'll leave a link to where you can find it in the description. And here's Warren Davis. Warren is the designer and programmer of the original Q*bert arcade video game. He was also the co-designer on other arcade titles, including Joust 2 and Terminator 2. And he's also a super nice guy. He also wrote a book called Creating Q*bert. I'll leave a link. And Leonard Herman, the father of video game history, the author of Phoenix, The History of the Video Game Industry. He's on the 4th edition now, also a great guy. I'll leave a link to his book as well. And here are a couple of pictures of me at the only permanent Raspberry Pi store in the world, in Cambridge, England. These guys were nice enough to sell me an 8GB Raspberry Pi 4 Model B outside of a kit, as they believed me when I said I traveled from the States to see their store and wanted it for myself and wasn't going to scalp it online. So, next episode I will be showing a port of Invader to the IchigoJam, the Raspberry Pi version, as the original IchigoJam is hard to come by these days, and also a web IDE version in BASIC using IchigoJam Basic. That about wraps up episode 41 of My Journey in Game Programming. Please like and subscribe and leave any comments or suggestions you may have that could make these a better experience. Until then, bye. I'll talk to you next time.